Folks, I'm just going to go to a main full video. This is going to be Giving Psychology Away number 130. I've been hot on the trail of these rascals since I was age 5. So I want you to realize how many decades I have invested into this. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. The people that are occupying America illegally and all of the other governments of Western civilization are all under the King of England, or previously the Queen of England. And they are called Rhadanites, Rhadanites. And they all came out of the same suburb of ancient Babylon. They all practice usury and enslaving the rest of humanity. They are name changers. They took over, they pretended to convert to Judaism. And they also have infiltrated the Ashkenazi. Not all the Ashkenazi can be Rhadanites, though. Bear that in mind. It would be a small percentage that would be Rhadanites. And you also have to realize that a lot of these folks come right from Mount Seir, right from the descendants of Canaan. So you need to understand that this story is actually bigger than the one that's in the Bible. What we're dealing with is much bigger than the story that is in the Bible. The Bible only focuses on one fallen angel named Gadriel. You want to look up Gadriel? I looked it up to be able to spell it from my blog one time. I Googled it, and I was surprised because he is detailed in Wikipedia. Gadriel, Gadreel. Now, why is that important? It's important because they've rewritten this Bible. They've taken the old Paleo-Hebrew and the Aramaic, and they've changed things. And I say they, meaning the evil one and his children. Quite literally, the evil one and his children. DNA, children, real offspring. And in 275 BC, approximately, when Ptolemy II was producing the Septuagint, that is, interpreting the Old Testament into Greek, because most of the Israelites by then had been Hellenized and were speaking Greek, not Hebrew, he was producing a Bible they could read. And he in his wisdom, not quite tongue-in-cheek, I really wonder about this. Somewhat sarcastically, I'm reporting this to you. He in his wisdom pulled out the name of Yahweh, YHVH. Remember, there were no vowels in Paleo-Hebrew. Those were filled in later. They were all consonants. So it was the four-letter word, I know what we think when we say four letters, which is otherwise called a tetragrammaton, and that stands for Yahweh. And that's the modern English equivalent of it. There are other people with other theories, and they've got some credence to them. I don't intend upon arguing about that here. Of course, if you go to the link down below, you will find the latest, greatest version of the English-speaking Bible, the proper name version of the King James Bible, which restores the proper name of Yahweh. And I know there are those out there that claim that Yahweh is Satan and Lucifer. No, it is a very confusing thing. They laid traps for us in our Bibles, and especially their Bible, which they produced in 1917 in order to take us over. And that was the Schofield Reference Study Bible, through which they pulled off the biggest identity theft in history. So, the Rhadanites run this country today. Your main families, and you know who they are Rhadanites. They do business together. They predate upon us as a pack of wolves. Yes, they argue and they fight among themselves, but the fact is they predate upon us just like a pack of predatory wolves. So you need to understand this stuff. Rhadanites, they control your media. Putin is, I've heard this for a while now, that he was a British agent. He's controlled by the British. That is indeed accurate. He is controlled by the British. And this show they're putting on over there is designed to actually result in a nuclear war, in my opinion, because they know we're waking up, and they know they can't contain us, and they also know that very soon, and I'm going to tell you this summer, when they pull their food riots on us in Maryland and in Delaware in particular, in Washington, D.C., folks are going to be going into different governmental agencies and bodies, and they're going to be taking people out and giving them a swinging time, if you know what I mean. They are going to be pulling them out. There's no need to try them. There's no need to convict them. They're guilty as can be, and they're going to be swinging. And I mean, this apparently was detected by one of my, well, I'll call him a cohort. He's not a peer. I don't know him. I don't communicate with him. But that would be Cliff High. Cliff High said recently that in his analyses 14 years ago they did not make sense. But this is what they pulled for. They pulled for food riots. People weren't going to have food. And that's what they're pulling on you at this point. They always do the three things that are in the Bible. They do pestilence, disease. They do famine or economic hardship, which they're doing now. And then on top of that, they do war. And that's what they're doing. And so we could end up with a nuclear war just because they want to hide who they are and blast the hell out of us because they'd rather rebuild than take a chance on us going after them. Folks, I need you to pay attention. This is Giving Psychology Away, 130. You go to my other channel if you want to get into the biblical studies and have greater understanding. We do cover it there. You cannot depend upon me. I have limitations. I do not feel competent and capable of telling you all that you need to know. You need to know much more than I know. You need to be 10 times more knowledgeable than I am. You need to get out your Bibles and read those and study those and do word studies. Now, I will tell you some more about Gadriel. Gadriel was the fallen angel that seduced Eve in the garden. Eve complained that the serpent seduced her. They had sex. It wasn't about eating an apple. It was about the pear on the ground. And I'm not talking fruit. I'm talking the coitus non interruptus, which resulted in the fallen angel fathering Eve's boy, Cain. In other words, Cain was of mixed seed. He was half Adamic DNA through his mother Eve and half fallen angel, fallen angelic, satanic DNA through his father Gadriel. Now this is advanced, and a lot of the people on my other channel won't know this. And it will be hard for them to swallow this, but you can do this. I have confidence. You take the short name for Gadriel, the nickname is Gad, and you just alliterate it just slightly differently. Gad, God. That's why they wrote the name God in there, which is not a name at all. It is a category. It's a noun. It's not a proper noun. It's not a proper name. It is a noun, and that's all there is to it. It's a category. And back then you had all kinds of gods. You had Satan, Lucifer. You had the fish god, Dagon. You had Molech, who received the babies through the fire. And, I know it says through the fire, but basically they passed them into the fire and burned them. The idea of going through the fire sounds like some of them might have made it. They might have just tossed the baby across the fire and played a game of catch. Oh, no. They were burning these children alive, these babies alive. If you don't believe me, you can watch a supposed reenactment, which might have been a real celebration, a real sacrifice, by Googling July 3rd, 1933 on Soldiers Field. You will see a video taken from at that time, and there's a watermark, if you will. Getty Images owns the copyright to that. Watch that, and then look at the other artwork that has survived in carvings and drawings, and you will see Molech, also known as Baal. Now you're wondering probably, what does the Ukraine have to do with this? Everything. The symbol that the Ukrainians are fighting under is the symbol for ancient Khazaria that the Khazarians fought under when they went to war. And the Khazarians loved war. They loved it so much they kept a standing army of several million, and they rented their army out to those neighbors who wanted to wage war against their other neighbors. And the reason they went to Judaism is because they had neighbors that were Christian and neighbors that were Muslim. And the only ones that seemed to get along with both of those parties were the Jews. And they wanted to be left alone. They didn't want to end up going to war with the Muslims because they converted to Christianity, or going to war with the Christians because they converted to Islam. This stuff gets very, very complicated, but we can make it very simple. These are the devil and the devil's children. They are liars, thieves, and murderers. And the devil's child, his son, Cain, murdered his half-brother Abel. Most of the people reading the Bible don't even get that. It's because they don't look at the words, they don't consider the context. They've been able to hide that from us for a long time because your professional priest tell you that angels can't reproduce. Well, here's the real big bad problem. The Bible only tells you about the angel Gabriel. There were 199 more fallen angels that conspired on Mount Hermon to go into women because they found the daughters of men fair and take all of them that they wanted for wives. They didn't have marriage licenses back then. The Sex Act was the Marriage Act, and that's what they did, and a lot of these women died giving birth to giants because they were too big for them to manage, too big for them to carry. But now that I've told you that, I feel a little bit better. But here's the real problem. You are being attacked. You are fighting on all fronts and you don't know it. Right now, they've been spraying in the area I've been at. It drops the temperature. And so they're screwing with their weather weapons right now. They're cranking up everything. They even have platforms in space that will beam down basically lightning, basically laser weapons, and start fires. How do you think they started the California forest fires a while back? They built these platforms in space to gather the solar radiation and transmit the electricity to the surface. However, shortly after they announced that in Popular Science, they took that away from all public publications, all public knowledge. Why? Because they weaponize everything possible. And the people at Bilderberger raved when the announcement was made because it was going to be coming from the satellites that they had in outer space, and people on the Earth weren't going to know where it came from. They weren't going to know what hit them. And the people at Bilderberg cheered because people were going to be struck by lightning bolts and not be able to do a damn thing about it. You need to understand these are very evil folks. Do not compare them with yourself. They do not have the proper wiring between the brain, the heart, and the enteric nervous system. They don't have that rich set of connections, and they don't have consciences. Look, folks, they challenge my training. They challenge the assumptions that the psychologists have. They challenge the science that we've developed, and we psychologists can't agree upon how to describe them, how to define them, whether or not we should be diagnosing them. And we haven't even begun to talk about whether or not we can treat them. Of course, I know one dumbass who thought he could. Yeah, you're looking at him. All right, I confess. Yeah, my pathology is to be a rescuer. It's what I was in my family of origin. I don't know if I did such a good job there, but I paid a price for that. And I became a professional rescuer. And so all you folks out there who brag about, oh, you want to be an empath, Oh, that's the ideal. That's the cat's meow. That's what you want. You want to be an empath. No, you don't want to be an empath. Believe me, you don't want to be able to merge with one of these evil people. I don't even want to call them people, by the way. You do not want to go to where they are at. It is hard to come back from those places. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to get your feet grounded again. And I don't go there voluntarily anymore. It used to be my job when I worked as a psychologist in the prisons. The term I prefer is sociopath because it develops in the social realm. And these folks usually develop from childhood. And by the time they're in their early teens, they have their scam down, their con down, what they're going to do to make you defenseless so they can predate upon you. And by the time they get into their 20s, they're almost what I would call journeymen. They've got their craft down. And by the time they hit age 30, they are masters of it. And very few people escape them. They lay plans, landfills, mines, pitfalls for you, way in advance, several levels beyond what you think. That's how active they are, and that's how destructive they are. And usually you don't get to see them when you're interacting with them. You might catch a glimpse of one when you're walking away. And don't take one on. You can't really beat them very easily. I've learned that the hard way. Even when I call them out, they still manage to win because they manipulate everybody else so well. They are not psychopaths. And we can debate whether or not the word psychopathy is a good word or not. I don't think it was. I don't think what was his name? The Harris. It's not Harris. I don't think that the scale of psychopathy that one fellow developed was all that good. If you want to read about sociopaths, I recommend a book published in 2006 entitled The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stout, Stout. Martha Stout had 50 years of experience, professional experience under her belt when she wrote that book. It's a very short book, only 200 pages. It is written for the layperson so that you might be able to defend yourself against them. And we are dealing with a sociopathic culture that came out of ancient Khazaria. And they're playing us over there. They know who they are. They know where they come from. And they're doing their best to manipulate us. They're getting ready to build the third temple, the New Jerusalem. And it's all a fraud, basically. It's not biblical. But they imitate the Bible as much as they can. To snow you in, to snow you under. I got a lot more to say, folks. Subscribe to the channel. You'll find more. Go to Awakening Israel and go along with the Bible with me, and I open up in that quite nicely, I think. So here you get a stream of consciousness. Hopefully I have tied things together. I've sewn things together well enough that you get the picture. The fact is, nothing happens by accident. All of these supposed accidents in this country with the trucks and the railroad cars, they're not accidents. It is sabotage. And not only that, it's your own government. Don't go blaming the Chinese for it. Don't go blaming the Russians for it. It's your own government doing it to you. That's the way it's always been. You see, these countries have a deal with each other. You can do whatever you want to your own people. As a matter of fact, they've got a pact where they actually go after their own people and they all agree to do it. Like they all agreed to reduce the Earth's population. And they've been working effectively towards that. In my estimation, they're going to kill about a third of you just on this first thing that they pulled on us. And then they pull another one. And of all things, Biden gave Gates authority over the country. In about 3 days, Gates is going to be the one commanding as far as whether or not you're taking the vaccine, whether or not you can travel. I shouldn't talk anymore about that. Gates is definitely out of his league. I don't know what else to say. You have to be careful, folks. I may have slipped up in a way that I'm going to regret here, but It's my policy to not edit these videos and to just put them up wholesale and honest as I can. So I will tell you that, yes, that stuff is treatment. Is it necessary treatment? You need to decide for yourself. Of course, the powers that be don't want you deciding for yourself. They want to dictate to you. Yeah, they're dictators. They want to tell you what to think, what to believe, and what you're going to do. And if you think that by carrying on with the status quo you're being brave, I'll tell you this. You're just a chicken shit. You aren't brave at all. If you're brave, you face your fears. When you face your fears, that's rough, but you get to grow. That's one of the principles that guided me through my life. If it's my fear, just go into it and do it. The incredible thing is if you read the Bible enough, the Spirit goes in with you and prepares things and hands things to you in ways that you just won't believe. You will see that Yahweh, Creator, Father God, has set a table with your enemies for you. Yes, He arranges things like that. Take a few steps to Yahweh. See if you don't get a blessing for it. See if you don't get something that you go, wow, that must have been a God thing. That must have been a Yahweh stepping in there. Maybe I better press into this Bible and read a little more. Follow that link down below, folks. Buy one of those 5 different formats. It helps me out quite a bit. I've got a lot of traveling to do. I need some money to burn because I'm going to put it in my fuel tank and I'm going to go visit some people. I got some people in Florida and the East Coast to visit, and that's a long ways. And I don't want to get stranded like I got stranded last summer where I ran out of money because I was spending about $1 a mile for fuel. Wow. $5.19, and I was just glad to be able to top my tank off. Yahweh actually gives you these presidents that we have that are consecrating you and setting you up for ruin. Why? Because you turned your backs on Yahweh. You hate Yahweh. You've become His enemy. It's not going to go well if you stay His enemy. Read that word. Read it. Push your way through it. If it gets boring, change up. There's plenty of other books in that Bible to be read. It is a library of books. May Yahweh bless. May Yahweh make you good. May you make America good again. Then maybe America will survive this time, and we might stop these guys from destroying Mother Earth and harming the rest of the Earth's children. That's our job. That's our destiny. You have been given everything you need to fill that destiny. Everything. And you have capacities that you don't even know about. Yahweh bless.